H2 Industries and Public Establishment for Industrial Estates Mada'in in Oman have signed a Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, to develop a waste-to-hydrogen plant in the Sultanate of Oman in conjunction with the construction of a 300-megawatt baseload capable PV solar installation that will also include a 70 megawatts of electrical storage. The facility has a $1.4 billion price tag. Solid waste will be sourced from waste management operators in Oman and mined from existing landfills to produce green hydrogen and pure CO2. The hydrogen can then be stored and/or exported via LOHC technology, which is the liquid organic hydrogen carrier, and the captured CO2 can be used along with the hydrogen to produce synthetic diesel or sustainable aviation fuels. Joining me to discuss this technology and this project and the outlook for the waste-to-hydrogen application is Michael Strusch, the Executive Chairman and CEO of H2 Industries. Hello, Michael, and thanks for joining me on the show. Give us first a very quick account of what H2 Industries does.
Hello, Nazir. Thank you for having me. I would love to tell you a little bit about H2 Industries. We are now 12 years old, and we have started to develop a technology to store hydrogen the first time under ambient conditions, so not under pressure and not under deep temperatures. And this technology was developed with German universities. And we brought this technology now in a pre-serial production way. That means pretty soon we will produce components in a serial production in a big factory. And parallel to this, we developed 4 years ago the technology to produce hydrogen from organic waste and plastic waste. Mm-hmm. And this is actually what we are doing in Oman and also in other countries in the world.
Describe to us how your waste-to-hydrogen technology works. What will power this process and how will emissions be avoided?
Yeah, thank you for this question. This is very important to understand that this waste-to-hydrogen technology is not like the old waste-to-energy technology where you burn waste. We don't burn waste here. We process waste in a chemical process. It's a thermolysis process. And we receive out of this process hydrogen and carbon monoxide. And then in a second process, this is a water gas shift process, we turn the carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide by adding more water and receiving more hydrogen. And then we separate the hydrogen from the carbon dioxide and store the carbon dioxide in tanks. And the hydrogen we store in LOHC for exporting, or we produce directly out of the carbon dioxide and the hydrogen synthetic fuels like e-diesel and SAF, sustainable aviation fuels. These are the two possibilities in this process.
So is this produced hydrogen actually green, or do we just call it clean?
We call it green because we have definitely no emission towards the atmosphere, the CO2 we capture. Internationally, there is not a standard defined yet, especially not in the EU. This is still under discussion. And it's actually even more than green because we solve also the problem to clean our planet from waste. So this will be decided in the future which color this have. Probably we can call it white.
To what extent does the waste composition present a barrier to producing high purity hydrogen, especially for fuel cells? And will waste pretreatment be required to improve the process efficiency and hydrogen yields?
The purity of the hydrogen has nothing to do with the waste. Anyhow, we separate the waste before we put it into our thermolysis process. But this is because we don't want to have other emissions than CO2 at the end. But for the purity of the hydrogen, this has no effect. We receive 5.0 hydrogen at the end of the process, so this can be used with any fuel cells.
The hydrogen produced could be stored and transported via liquid organic hydrogen carriers, LOHC. Explain to us how that technology works and how will it stack up against other modes of storage and transport, such as fuel cells, ammonia, methanol, liquefied hydrogen, compressed hydrogen, or any other medium?
That is also a very good question, because what's not so known so far is that LOHC is actually the safest and the most affordable technology to transport hydrogen, compared to others like ammonia or liquefied hydrogen or gas form hydrogen. I mean, when you put it in methanol, then you burn at the end methanol, then you have also emissions. Hydrogen stored in LOHC, when you release it, you have pure hydrogen, and when you burn it in a fuel cell, you have no emissions except water. So this is, as I said, comparing to the cost from the other technologies, the cheapest technology, and it can be used in existing infrastructure. So we can use for shipping super tankers. We only need to clean them, and when we put the LOHC in, it's actually an oil. It's a carrier, so the hydrogen is only chemically bounded in the oil and then taking out, and then you can recharge the LOHC again. So we don't burn the LOHC, we only use it as a carrier. And this can be done with existing infrastructure like ships, trains, and trucks. And that is the interesting part.
The CO2 produced from the waste to hydrogen process could also be used along with the hydrogen to produce sustainable aviation fuels. Tell us more about that potential.
This is what I described in the beginning. We have two possibilities at the end. When we have the hydrogen and the CO2 captured, we can produce directly sustainable aviation fuels and e-diesel, or we export the CO2 because we receive from the whole process 15 times more CO2 than hydrogen. And for sustainable aviation fuels and e-diesel, we only need 7 times more CO2 than hydrogen. So in any case, we can export the CO2 to other companies who are producing synthetic fuels, because there's a huge shortage on the market right now on CO2, and the price is very high. So we can reduce the price for CO2 in the future and deliver this to other off-takers.
How much will it cost to produce 1 kilogram of clean hydrogen from your waste-to-hydrogen technology? And how will that compare to costs of producing clean hydrogen through other sources or technologies?
Right now, there is nearly no green hydrogen produced, and the price is very high. We are talking about a few dollars, like $5, $6, $7. It's very unclear what the price is now. But what we have calculated in 2024, 2025, when the first plants are in operation, we can produce green hydrogen in a range of $2 to $3. And in 2030, we will come below $1 per kilogram of hydrogen. And the other technologies from electrolysis, they are very expensive right now, and the numbers saying that they will be in 2025 around $4. But then we will see. It depends how the electrolyzer prices are going down. That is the point. I can only repeat what I read in studies and research analysis. That's all we can do, but we know our prices, and that's what I said. So in 2030, it's below $1 per kilogram.
There has been a lot of hype around green and clean hydrogen in the last couple of years. In the MENA region, countries like Morocco, Egypt, UAE, Oman, and Saudi Arabia are all looking into it. And even in Europe, Europe could turn more quickly to hydrogen given its goal to reduce its dependence on Russian gas. Has this hype translated to something more solid for clean hydrogen? And how do you see the outlook for green hydrogen up to 2030?
We are talking to most of the countries in the MENA region even before the war started. So the demand for green hydrogen is there, and it accelerated with the war, of course, definitely, and the price went up for green hydrogen. But this will be the main development in the next years, and every country, not only in the MENA region, wants to produce and export green hydrogen. So that's why we are talking with more than 30 countries right now around the globe, most of them in the MENA region and in Africa. So green hydrogen will dominate the market, and in a few decades, we are only talking about green hydrogen anymore.
You also have a pre-approval for a similar plant in the Suez Canal in Egypt. Any updates on that project? And are there any other projects in the pipeline in the MENA region that you can tell us about?
Yeah, regarding East Port Said project, this is well in development. So we have finalized the feasibility study, and actually will be short in Egypt, and start producing and developing there. So this is all in process. And in other regions, we have similar projects, and they are pretty close to sign the MOUs. So in the next weeks, there will come another press releases out with other countries.
Thank you, Michael Strusch, CEO and Executive Chairman of H2 Industries. Thanks for taking the time and being with us on the show.